Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Samson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. This episode is brought to you by Haven Steel, one of the newest supporters we have here on the Germinate podcast, and we couldn't be more grateful to have them on board. They are specialty heat treaters who've mastered the art of steel form products built to last longer and deliver the kind of durability manufacturers depend on. They support businesses throughout the globe with American-made reliability, but really here's what I appreciate the most about Haven. They're genuinely great people first. Owner Ken Brown and his team carry a purpose and a drive that's rare in today's business world. They don't just work hard on their 2 plants in Haven, Kansas and McKinsey, Tennessee. They care. They put their customers first, they show up when it matters, and they stand behind every product they manufacture. So if you manufacture agricultural equipment or distribute heat-treated components, Haven Steel is the only name you need to call. And I'll say this, Haven Steel is up to something special. They are investing, expanding, and stepping into a new chapter that's going to get this industry's attention. So stay tuned, everyone. Keep your eye on Haven Steel and learn more at havensteel.com, havensteel.com. Hey, folks, welcome to the Germinate podcast. Let's see, we're recording this right before the Thanksgiving holiday, so it's all happening here in the United States. Holiday season is upon us. That's the busy time of the year, but thanks for all the listeners for coming on board. I want to thank some sponsors right off the bat. First and foremost, GBGI out of Chardon, Ohio. We're going to run an ad through this episode, so you'll see how to get in touch with them, but their website is gbgiusa.com. Reach out to Pete Casamento, Mark Adams, Jamie Casamento, and the team over there. Really working hard in the planter attachment parts business, both in manufacturing and distribution. So gbgiusa.com. Appreciate their support. Also, Haven Steel, a new supporter of ours out of Haven, Kansas and McKinsey, Tennessee. Well, they're getting their first B-roll here. I think it's this episode. So appreciate those guys' support. And also finally, Haven is havensteel.com, Haven steel.com. Reach out to Ken Brown, Chris Brown, Tom O'Brien, Kevin Pop. Those are real solid human beings over there. And I truly do know they care about the customer first. And so that's important. Finally, the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association, FEMA, not the FEMA you're thinking of, the other FEMA. Appreciate their support as well. New sponsor. We're having a new engagement on the consulting side with them. Couldn't be happier just to support the American farmer ultimately with them. And that really leads us into our next guest here, Mr. Christopher Pudenz. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you today?
Good. So Chris is with the Iowa Farm Bureau. What's your title over there?
I'm the Economics and Research Manager, or just Economist. So I'm the Economist at the Iowa Farm Bureau.
So we're going to make the Economist super exciting and sound great today. Can't wait for it. Iowa State grad. We talked a little football before this, but it's funny, man. I do this out of my house, and I look out this window. Sometimes I wake up early, right? And I look and there's a farm way out there, and there's always, if I get up at 5:00 in the morning, the light is always on, always. And I got to thinking about, like, what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is somebody's in that house working, all the time. And I just feel such a passion for that and such pride knowing that guy or that gal or that family is doing everything they can to not only support their family, but to support all of us that rely on the American farmer and the Iowa farmer. I mean, we're both Iowans, so we should really dive into that. And I don't know, that's what you all represent as well as at the Iowa Farm Bureau. You're doing everything you can to make sure that they are doing everything they can, right? I mean, that was a super long intro, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, you mentioned looking out and seeing that light on in that farmhouse off in the distance. My dad is a cattle feeder. He comes from a long line of cattle feeders, and right now, his pens are empty, and given the developments in the past couple days, he's thankful that his pens are empty because futures prices at least have completely fallen out of bed. But the reason I bring that up now is he doesn't have cattle in his pens right now. And this will be the first time in probably 50 years that he doesn't have to do cattle chores on Christmas Day.
Wow. You're
Yeah.
kidding me.
Nope. Agriculture is a full-time job. Cows don't care that it's Christmas. And it's certainly the backbone of this economy here in the state of Iowa.
So you truly think 50 years is the first time that you're not going to see your dad work on Christmas, huh? And due to what? You say what happened in the past couple of days for those that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, the two big events that were announced on Friday is that first, the 40% additional tariff that was put on beef coming in from Brazil, that was dropped. Now there's still an above tariff rate quota tariff that applies to all imports, is my understanding. That applies to Brazilian beef, but that additional 40% was dropped on Friday in an effort to lower beef prices domestically. Also, Tyson announced that they were going to be closing their Lexington, Nebraska cattle slaughter plant sometime at the beginning of 2026. And they're also going to be taking their Amarillo plant down to one shift in the panhandle of Texas. And so those things together reduce cattle slaughter capacity here in the United States and will probably shift leverage away from the farmers back toward the processors.
Wow. And all so that happened, let's see, we said today is the 25th. That happened Friday, Friday the 21st. And in 2 days, it's already trickled down to the farmer as a result. I mean, dive in, kind of unpack what happens to the farmer when things like when policy like that happens.
Mm-hmm. So the immediate effect is that live cattle futures, which started trading again on Monday morning, those opened limit down. There's certain movements that futures prices are allowed to make in any given day, and they opened as coming in as low as they could have with as much of a decrease as they could come in with on Monday morning, and they stuck there basically all day.
Mm-hmm.
When prices started trading again today, so now they have the chance to go limit down again if they wanted. They didn't do that today. They are kind of hanging out where they were before. But basically, since all the beef talk started about a month ago, I think October 20th was when those, it started getting talked about more by the administration and in the news. Cattle prices, futures prices, CME futures prices in Chicago have lost like $40 a hundredweight, which, they were trading at about $240 a hundredweight in that range. So that's a substantial decrease in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk. Mainly, we're talking corn and soybeans on this podcast, but I love to unpack the cattle, and you're the perfect guy to talk to. So I'm gonna say a lot of things that are just I have no idea if they're true or not. All right, so figure me out. But everybody's been talking. I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of talk about the cattle markets. Like if you're a cattle farmer right now, you're just rolling in it. Everything's great. Everything's gravy. Trump made some comments. What was that, about a month or so ago, about we're inflating the prices of meat in the grocery stores, and I'm saying a lot here without really saying much, but there's a lot of truth probably in some of that, and there's a lot of not so much truth in that. Is that accurate to say?
What's going on in beef prices essentially
Yeah.
is it's both a supply thing and a demand thing.
Okay.
You have the supply side, and with with what's going on the supply side is that we are just low cattle in this country right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cattle inventories are very cyclical, right? They have these long life cycles in that you breed a heifer or a cow, it takes 9 months ish for that cow to give birth. It takes another couple of years for that animal that's born, that calf, to become steak, right? Just
Right.
putting it bluntly.
Yeah,
And so
right.
there are these substantial leads and lags in this industry that make it one of the most complex industries in the entire world. But we are certainly in the trough of a cattle cycle right now. Inventories are low. They're going to stay low for the foreseeable future. Compound that with the Mexican border being closed to live cattle imports because of a parasitic fly called the New World screwworm that has moved its way north in Mexico.
Okay.
That reduces feeder cattle imports from Mexico. We usually import about 1 million head a year from them, feeder cattle, and we've imported just a couple 100,000 head this year. So
Way down. Yep.
that's yeah, way down. Um, so supply's tight. Add that all up, supply's tight. Beef demand's very good. It's good. It's better than the other proteins right now. The demand is just far and away better than anyone expected. Like incredible
Hmm.
in the classical sense of the word. Like hard to believe. Like incredible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just absolutely wild how strong demand has been. Demand was up in quarter one and quarter two of 2025, roughly 10% each of those quarters over the previous quarter in 2024, which already was at an elevated level. So you have tight supplies and strong demand. It's going to give you high prices,
Sure.
and it also takes high prices to cure high prices, right? In order to spur investment going on into the future, those high prices are necessary. So we'll see what this recent decline will do to getting inventories up again, because it takes return for several years in order to spur investment in the industry.
Yeah, I love how you say high prices cure high prices, and
Yeah.
you also said demand for beef right now is incredible.
Okay.
What do you think's going on there? Do you have any idea?
Couple things. I think that the American farmer, in conjunction with beef genetics folks, have done a great job at responding to what consumers want. In the 90s, there was a lot of science regarding dietary cholesterol that, looking back, it isn't what the modern science is saying about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
Things have changed on the food pyramid. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I
correct.
got you. Yeah,
Yep. And so during the 90s, though, the beef industry just said, okay, well, we're never going to be anyone's favorite on this food pyramid. So let's make our product taste good and try and win that battle. And the beef has done a very good job at increasing the quality of the eating experience, increasing the quality of the taste experience for consumers when they buy beef at the grocery store, and also consumers when they buy beef at restaurants. American beef is just far and away known as the best beef in the world. Um, you could maybe say that some folks put Wagyu from Japan in that category, but it's just a far more limited supply than we have,
yeah,
and it's substantially more expensive too.
yeah. I've
But
had the Wagyu.
yeah,
Eh, it's okay. It's a little high priced in my
yeah,
opinion. It's not. I get it, but I wonder if there's this huge resurgence online amongst social media and kids about fitness. And I've heard, once again, I'm not saying things, people are going to fact check me on this, but I've heard, like, for instance, drinking is way down with teens. And a part of that is they're better educated, but they're also they're consciously caring about their health. I was just at a swim meet with my daughter last week in Iowa City, and the pool at Iowa City is, like, in the middle of the rec center for all the college kids. So we're there on a Friday morning, dude, and there's kids working out, college kids working out on a Friday morning. When I went to college, there were not kids working out on a Friday morning. That was not in there. There were maybe a few, but the vast majority were probably still in bed, you know what I mean? So you have to wonder if there's, like, this resurgence of fitness and protein. Everybody talks about how much protein you can get. I need a gram of protein for however many pounds I weigh. That's hard to do unless you eat a big steak or something, and then you can get a ton of it. You think that's part of this deal, or
absolutely. I think that's a huge part of it. I also think there's, newer research showing the importance of protein for folks as they age in order to maintain muscle mass. I also think that with these like GLP-1s, like the Wegovys and the Ozempics and things like that, folks who are on those drugs tend to, reduce carb intake
Mhm.
and increase protein intake. Like, and here I am, an economist now, getting into a world that's not mine, probably saying things that are not quite exactly accurate. But I think all of those factors are part of sort of this protein story. I also think, and this kind of gets more into the economic side of things, where I know a little more
Yeah,
rooted.
we're getting into your profession. I like it.
Yeah, a little more rooted. Um, there's been a lot of discussion in the last month about the recovery from COVID, was it a V-shaped recovery or a K-shaped recovery? I don't know if you've heard any of that discussion or not. Um,
Well,
the
I live in the world and I see how strange things were during COVID and how almost even stranger not things, business experiences, business everywhere, manufacturing, everything. Boom, COVID. And all of a sudden it's hit this wall and nobody really knows what the heck's happening right now, in my opinion. So I see it, I feel it. Now, do I study it? No, by no stretch. So go ahead, unpack what you were gonna say. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, so the V-shaped recovery is the idea that, things went down during COVID and then everything went back up and it's been up and up and up for everybody since then. The K-shaped recovery is the idea that things went, down, but then they kind of split off, right? Some people things have kind of gone up for them and some people things have not exactly gone up, right? Perhaps
Sure.
they're treading water or things have even gotten worse for them economically in the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to see, and here's the thing, COVID was this huge surplus in business, and so there was a lot of money being traded around, so a lot of people invested in not only their business, but also maybe they bought a new house or they, bought the fancy car, whatever, and spent a lot of that money thinking, "Well, this is just, we made it. Business is great. We're gonna make it." And then all of a sudden, no, things changed in a hurry, and so now there's this, and I see it everywhere. Like, for instance, labor. Labor is probably forever changed. No one gone are probably the days of somebody going to a factory and starting there at 19 years old and retiring at 69. I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. I mean, yeah, the average tenure of C-suites, for instance, the average tenure of a VP of sales today is like 18 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 18
Wow.
months. They get, we all are so dopamine hit, quick hitters that it's like, nope, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. So it's a weird world, man. And yeah, of course, there's this strange economic thing happening. And I think clearly it relates back to the farmer and the cattle guy, the corn soybean guy too. Nobody knows what's going to happen. There's so much uncertainty, right?
Yep. And to your point, tying this back into this beef discussion, if you look at like University of Michigan consumer sentiment
Okay.
surveys, I don't know if you've seen that data series or not.
Uh-uh.
It basically just tracks how people feel about the economy.
Okay.
People who have stocks feel much better about the economy right now than people who don't.
Yeah.
And so it seems that people who have stocks, especially people who have tech stocks, are on that upper leg of that K going upward. And perhaps you can't say this for the Midwest because there is just a culture of eating meat. Right here in the Midwest, I have a half pig and one deep freeze at home and a quarter beef in the other. Right,
Yep.
that's
It's what we
not.
do. It's
Yep.
exactly what we do. Yep.
You go out to New York. Who is it that buys a steak in New York City? It's your asset laden folks, right?
Yeah.
And those folks have done well. So even though everything's more expensive, even beef, they're still feeling okay about the economy and they're still buying beef at the grocery store. So
Yeah.
that's just to put a bow on that line of thinking. That's how that all comes together.
Yeah, it's dude, you're making such logical sense. I love it. Now, tie it back to you, and this is just my ignorance. Tie it back to you saying, okay, now all of a sudden my dad's not going to be working out, feeding cattle on Christmas anymore as a result of kind of everything that's going on. Why I mean, I see why that's a good thing. Number 1, he gets to be home at Christmas, spend time with the family. That's probably a good thing, right? It's a bad thing because, that's your livelihood too. So, but why is that happening? That why this year, you think? And is that what it's gonna look like in the future, or does something need to change?
Yeah, there's a couple different directions that we can take that. So maybe we'll just start with one, right?
Fire away.
Yeah, the immediate reason why my dad didn't fill his lots again after he sold his cattle this summer was he looked at feeder cattle prices. So his input is feeder cattle. He buys lighter weight cattle, he feeds them corn that he raises on his own farm,
Okay.
and then he sells the heavyweight cattle to beef processors, the market weight cattle, and then they go become steak, right?
Sure, sure.
He was looking at feeder cattle prices and they got very high because supplies have been so tight and demand has been so strong. And so he was looking at that margin going, okay, my feeder cattle prices for my inputs are very high.
Mhm.
Fat cattle prices, live cattle prices are this. Is there enough margin for me to make that business decision? And he decided no.
Okay.
And that is the immediate reason why his pens are empty. And that's a good thing for the feeder cattle folks, that prices are high for them in a derived demand market like this, where the price for beef, the price for cattle is upstream from the price of beef, and the price of feeder cattle is upstream from the price of live cattle, your fat cattle. So the demand for the cattle is ultimately derived from the demand for the beef by the consumer. So in that sort of market, you want the feeder for cattle folks to be doing well too. You want everybody to be doing well.
Yeah.
Um, but he just looked at it and said, I can't pencil this out right now. I heard someone say once, there's better ways to get exercise than feeding cattle. He decided he wasn't going to get forced exercise on Christmas Day, losing money on cattle just because the markets weren't right. That was his immediate decision.
So he's playing the waiting game a little bit
Yeah, he's
here.
playing the
Yeah.
waiting game.
So how long can he play the waiting game for? Does that last for another month, another 60 days, another 90 days? What are we looking at?
So something that's nice about a lot of agriculture in Iowa is that it's very diversified, especially into livestock.
Mhm.
If you look at a chart of essentially ag GDP, value added from agriculture in Iowa versus Illinois, Iowa has close to double the ag GDP than Illinois does. Even though there's some very good farm ground in Illinois, right? They're the nation's largest producer of soybeans, the second largest producer of corn. They basically don't have a livestock industry. You look at Iowa, and actually in 2024, value added from livestock, animals and products, according to USDA's classification, but that's livestock and dairy, was more than value added from corn and soybeans and all the other crops. And so, but if you think about it, like, what is a pig? I heard someone say once that a pig is just a bunch of corn and soybean meal with four legs. And so, you could say the same thing for a broiler. You could say the same thing for a turkey, right? Um, the uh, the nice thing about that diversified industry that we have here in the state of Iowa, with all these different demand centers, you have livestock, you have ethanol, you have these different demand centers, but going to focus on like the farmer feeder setup, like my family has. You don't have to feed your corn to your cattle if you don't want to, and you can still sell it on the market and get a return for it. If feeding your corn to cattle is going to result in a negative margin, you can just choose not to do that and sell your corn instead. So there's this natural built-in diversification in that setup that, in my opinion, makes Iowa the most important livestock state in the country.
Just due to that diversification. It
In large
gives you
part,
some
yeah.
options. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you. That's a good segue maybe into the grain market here as well. It's been a mess the last, I don't know, call it since January. Let's say 10 months. It's been a mess, maybe even before that. But of recent here, we've had some kind of progress, a little momentum. Everybody's probably heard by now about China placing some purchase orders. And in fact, the US is even sending some grain over there in containers now. But there for a while, it was pretty meek, man. It was tough, and it still is. I'm not saying we're out of the woods yet. We're not even close. But um, to your point, the diversified farmer, specifically in Iowa, has some options here. What's your take on the grain market, and where are we heading with that? I know that's a loaded question. They can go a lot of different ways, but your background tells you what as an economist.
I think that diversification is going to be really important going forward for corn and soybean markets, especially. You can talk the livestock angle, like we've already talked about. Iowa is an emerging dairy state, and there are some historical reasons for that. When you think of dairy historically, you think of Wisconsin and New York, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And then you think of California, and then you had the exodus of dairies from California due to regs, and they went to places like Idaho and Arizona and Texas. What do those states have issues with? Water.
Yeah.
So you're seeing more and more dairies move back to the Midwest and Iowa specifically because we have plenty of water and plenty of silage. And so I think that that's one way that, folks can consider diversifying. But also, man, just think about, let's, walk through the same period of time that you mentioned, January of 2025. Corn prices weren't looking very good. We had a little bit of a run there at the end of January into February, and actually, we set our crop insurance price in February, and I don't think we had a single trading day after the crop insurance price was set in February where it traded above that crop insurance price. And I have an industry contact who told me that that's never happened before.
Wow.
And so folks never had a chance to sell their grain in what is typically a May, June, July rally. That rally didn't happen this year. But what did folks plan? Corn prices weren't very good in 2024 coming into 2025, but neither were soybean prices. Soybean prices looked even worse. So they planted a bunch of corn. They planted 99 million acres of corn, according to USDA. A massive crop. Weather conditions were pretty favorable, and despite some disease pressure, especially from southern rust, we produced the largest corn crop that we have ever produced in this country. Going forward, if China doesn't come through on this 12 million metric tons of soybeans that they are, saying they're going to purchase before January, and then 25 million metric tons a year after that for the next 3 years, if they don't come through with that, what are we going to plant more of in this country?
Of
Corn,
course. Of
right?
course.
Because what
Yeah.
else are we going to do with all those soybeans that go to China other than, just they're going to drag prices down if we don't find another demand center for them. So we have to find ourselves a way out of that cycle. I think livestock's part of it, specifically dairy. And I think there's some serious questions to be asked. What else can we do to get out of this downturn in the row crop economy here in the United States?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing you said that's interesting is, well, number one, we're not even close to 12 million metric tons. Do you know that? No, it's not. We're never going to make it. We've got 30 days. It's not going to happen. So for those out there that are listening, and you've heard, me say that, and a lot of other I'm going to call myself an analyst, but we're not going to get to that number. Um, I interviewed a farmer on an episode here a couple weeks ago. He was actually harvesting his corn crop. I think it was his corn crop. I can't remember. Maybe it was his bean crop. But either way, we were just talking about how hard it is, and the struggle and the grind. And he's a family first guy, and this is a family farm. It's been around. I think he's the third generation. And what's funny, he said something to me that's interesting. Number one is all the prices of everything has gone through the roof. You name it: chemicals, grain, seed, equipment. We haven't even talked equipment yet, but it's sky high. Technology sky high, and getting a little bit more complex. But you might have to have it. But the corn price hasn't really changed since 1980, right? I mean, it's the same, really. I mean, we've had some good years and some bad years, but for the most part, someone should look up. I could do it right now, but the corn price in 1985 was probably very similar to what it is today.
Absolutely, if you adjust for inflation,
Yeah, if
right?
you
Like,
adjust for inflation, for sure. But even if you
yeah,
don't, it's like
yeah.
it's similar enough. And so that's it's like we've kept going back to the well, and it's just ride the highs and ride the lows and then take advantage of the highs, and that's a tough plan if you're a farmer, you know what I mean? Like, that kinda sucks. I don't wanna keep doing that's a stressful life, right? And so I like the fact that you're at least thinking of some other ways to help these guys out. What else are in your opinion can these guys kind of do to adjust and get through this stuff, you know?
I think that it might take some creative thinking here in 2026 and certainly on into the future after that. I'm not sure that sort of to, you know, jump on what you said there, like doing
The same
things
thing
the
over and over.
same
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
again is going to break us from this cycle. And the main reason that is because of Brazil.
Good point.
Brazil agriculture has absolutely exploded. They're going to continue to expand acres. Their superpower is their devalued currency, and China would always prefer to buy soybeans from Brazil than us. And that has completely changed the game. Now we have some advantages as well. We have the best transportation system in the world for exporting agricultural products, and that starts with this thing that God blessed us with called the Mississippi River. It's a fantastic um, piece of natural infrastructure that South America doesn't have. Um, we have the best technology in the world, and we have the best ag policy in the world. Uh, Brazil doesn't have crop insurance, nor do I think they ever will have crop insurance because of the instability of their financial institutions and just the instability of the economy as a whole. I don't think they'll ever end up with a crop insurance system like we have. And just to toot Iowa Farm Bureau's horn just a little bit here, revenue protection crop insurance started out of Iowa State University. Iowa Farm Bureau gave several professors at Iowa State University some seed money to start the research project that eventually ended up being revenue protection crop insurance that's used all over the
All
country.
over. Yeah.
Yep. So pretty cool story there. Two of those professors were on my dissertation committee at Iowa State.
You're kidding me.
Uh,
Nice. What year was
so
that? When did that happen, you know? I mean,
that
not
was late 90s, 2000s,
okay. I
sometime
gotcha.
in that
I
time
gotcha.
period. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's which I think if you talk to a lot of farmers to push back and not to push back, most of them don't want that subsidy. I mean, it's a sense of pride. Nobody wants it, but they know, I mean, they cannot survive without it. It's life or death. You cannot survive and put a crop in the next year without it. So, you know, that subsidy is super important. I don't wanna call it that. Let's call it an insurance plan. But to your point, Brazil doesn't have that. So they're gonna have the same struggle someday that we are, and if you can't put a crop in the next year, well, then what? So, uh, but yeah, you said that about Brazil, and what else? I cut you off, but yeah.
Yeah. So to come back to this idea of creativity, what else can we do here domestically if Brazil is just going to continue expanding and they're going to continue to be very competitive in our international markets because of their currency situation, because of the low cost of production situation. And I think we just have to look to, as best as we can, generating new markets for our products. Like that's one thing we absolutely need to do, whether that's domestically. You talked about protein, the importance of protein, dairy, livestock, state of Iowa. We already kind of walked through all that. But what about internationally? Now, the state of Iowa just became sister states with the state or province in India that is home to Bombay or Mumbai. I think it's Maharashtra. I think that's how I've heard
Mhm.
people who know how it should be pronounced pronounce it. And we just became sister states with them. The governor has taken 2 trade missions to India in the past year. I think more of that dialogue will continue to happen. India is the world's most populous country, and I think that they're going to reach a situation here in the not so distant future where they have more people than they have calories to feed the people. Certainly in a province, home to a city like Mumbai, where they have a lot of people and not enough agriculture to provide the calories for those people. So, are we going to be able to sell them corn? I don't know, right? could we grow pulses here in the state of Iowa? I actually don't know the answer to that question either, but we should probably start looking at it. Like, are there ways that we can set ourselves up for that Indian market, or
Yeah.
markets like the Indian market, in order to prepare for, hopefully when that market does liberalize and become more willing to purchase American product.
What did you say? You said hopefully we can grow what here? Did you say
Pulses,
pulses?
Pulses, like chickpeas and things like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
gotcha. Um, yeah, I hear the counter argument, like India will never become China because of the religious beliefs and they're never going to eat that kind of a protein. But to your point, there's so many people, you've got to be able to partner with a country like that. I love the fact that Iowa's found a sister city over there, a sister state over there, I should say, because yeah, what others, maybe it's not the way we eat, but maybe there's some synergies that we can come up with that actually make sense. And to your point, it's all about options. We can't just say, "Oh, well," I don't think we can just say, "Let's ride out the market. It's gonna come back." Everybody keeps saying that now. "It's gonna come back. I promise you. Just hang in there and wait till we get to that 8, 9, $10 corn again. It's gonna happen." I don't know. That's not a good plan. I don't think we should rely on that. Let's come up with some better options than that so we don't have to be so cyclical, so we can kinda ride this middle ground out. I think everybody would be happier with that.
My concern with that logic, Joe, is we had relatively low corn returns, like bad corn returns. Let's just be blunt, bad corn returns last year, and we
Uh-huh.
followed that up with 99 million acres of corn this year.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
right.
that's just my concern with that line of logic is, uh, how are we going to break out of the cycle? And you know, I Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, maybe to some degree Nebraska, we are perhaps, comparative advantage producers of corn and soybeans in the entire world. Like, we have the soil for it, we have the rain for it. Let's, extending out to some of those margin areas here in the United States. And I don't mean that disparagingly, but just, on the margins of the Corn Belt, the
Mhm.
Dakotas, or you move down south, like say into Kentucky or Arkansas, those are places that can grow other crops. Now, they wouldn't be growing corn if it weren't the most profitable to grow corn. That totally makes sense. But can they start looking at other crops again? And is there any margin there? And if there isn't, what's holding back the margin in those markets too? I think that creativity and diversification, it's going to be the name of the game here.
Hey, folks, let's pause the podcast for a second to talk about one of the companies making the Germinate podcast possible. Want to give a huge thanks to GBGI. Here's Mark Adams.
Thanks, Joe. At our shop in Chardon, Ohio, every part we build is made with precision. From the CNC machining to the final inspection, we don't rush because we know your customers can't afford failure. If you're a dealer or OEM who wants reliability built in, give us a look. GBGI, built to spec, built to last. Learn more at gbgiusa.com. GBGI, grow with us.
A exciting partner that we just brought on board. I don't partner with those that I don't believe in. And FEMA is a network that I've been a part of for almost 20 years, over 20 years, actually. And this episode is powered by the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association. FEMA connects the entire ag equipment ecosystem, not just manufacturers and suppliers, but a wide range of partners who help this industry run, grow, and evolve. In today's world, building farm equipment takes a heck of a lot more than steel, tooling, and production lines. It takes the people and companies who support manufacturers and suppliers behind the scenes, the problem solvers, innovators, creators, integrators, service partners, all you strategic thinkers who help businesses operate smarter, communicate better, and push this industry forward. So whether you build equipment, support the people who build it, or you're a company that wants to plug into the industry in a meaningful way, FEMA is the network to do that. It opens doors. It's where relationships become opportunities, where collaboration creates momentum, and where the future of our industry is being shaped. So if you want to be part of FEMA, reach out to me or reach out to farmequip.org, FARMEQUIP.org, and connect with manufacturers and partners driving agriculture forward. FEMA, where the whole industry connects, grows, and moves together. www.farmequip.org.
Dude, it's so interesting. You are a wealth of knowledge. I've talked to you just a couple other times, but man, you are a wealth of knowledge. It's impressive. It's super impressive. People just need to hear from people like you. You know, you have this way to speak that to me it makes sense. And you know, I walk into a room with 10 people, 9 of them are way smarter than me, I promise you. So if it makes sense to me, then the audience is really getting it. Talk a little bit about your background. I had mentioned earlier you went to Iowa State. You knew you always want. I mean, you grew up on a farm, so that was always kind of in your blood, right? You knew it. That was what you wanted to do right away when you went to Iowa State, or how'd you get into this?
So, praise God, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've had some good teachers and some great experiences along the way. So happy to be able to explain things. I think my perspective is that if it's not understandable, what's the point? So might as well do what I can to make it understandable.
And this is coming from an economist, folks. I mean, I've listened to economists. You're spot on. Okay, keep
Yeah.
going. I
Yeah,
love it.
we don't have a reputation of being the easiest to listen to, but so I am going to correct you just a minute. I did not go to Iowa State for my undergrad.
Oh, you did not? Okay,
No, I
I
went to
got
a
you.
small little school in Michigan called Hillsdale College,
Oh, that's right.
uh,
You told me this.
liberal
Yeah,
arts school.
yeah.
I would argue one of the best schools in the country, if not the best school in the country, just in terms of the rigor of the education
Okay.
and the quality of the student experience. The students are genuinely happy there.
Isn't
Uh,
that's
I
a novel concept, isn't it?
it shouldn't be,
Yeah,
right?
right. I know. I know.
But I spent 6 years on campus at Iowa State, which was also a great experience, but it was during COVID,
Oh,
and
okay. Yep.
the students weren't as happy.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to put it. The students just weren't as happy as they were at Hillsdale, despite Hillsdale being worked to the bone. But I think that how did I end up where I am today? Essentially, is what you asked, and more or less, it's just been one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I never really meant to end up back in agriculture, but it seems as if the Lord intended for that. When I arrived at Hillsdale, uh, I was put in a dorm, and it was a wonderful dorm, the best dorm on campus, far and away, just in terms of community and Bible study and things like that.
Okay.
And the kid across the hall from me grew up on a ranch in Wyoming.
Okay.
And so we immediately bonded over that. I worked on his ranch that next summer for about a month. I got to be a cowboy out in Wyoming.
So it was like you were on an episode of Yellowstone, basically.
Yes,
Yeah,
without the
okay.
murder.
Without the
But
murder.
and and then Hillsdale kind of came through again, and I ended up in another agricultural situation that following summer. The one of the main lobbyists for NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, was at our farm visiting my parents, talking with them about something. And
Mm-hmm.
they saw the Hillsdale sticker on the fridge, and she said, "Hey, we have this public policy internship. Do you know someone at Hillsdale?" And my parents said, "Yeah, our son goes there." And she said, "Well, you should apply." So I applied, and I got the internship, and had a great experience out in DC that summer. That's when they passed TPA, Trade Promotion Authority. A lot of really interesting issues. That would have been the summer of 2015. So it was kind of the last big push during the second Obama term before the election cycle really kicked up. So it was very, very interesting. A lot of things going on,
Yeah. Nice.
and so it was kind of those two experiences where I discovered that I wanted to be back in agriculture. Like I liked economics. I enjoyed my economics courses. I enjoyed those discussions. I enjoyed the professors. I loved the professors. I still stay in touch with several of them today. But I just really, really loved the agricultural aspect of those experiences I had during the summers. So I decided, I'm going to go to grad school. What's going to get me through a multi-year PhD program is going to be the agriculture.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
so I'm going to study agricultural economics. Ended up at Iowa State, which was one of the best places in the world to do it. Had some great teachers there. And so I guess just to like kind of summarize all of that, it's like my life verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And it certainly feels like like I said, I never intended to end up really getting a PhD in ag econ, and then from there starting to work at Iowa Farm Bureau. It's been an amazing experience. I've learned so much. I'm very, very thankful for all of that. But it seems like the Lord has certainly made my path straight and intended that I end up here, right now.
Yeah. Oh gosh, dude. I mean, you said some things there. The hair on my neck stood up. I love your life's verse for one. Hillsdale College is where again?
In Michigan.
Michigan. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, my parents were they were very supportive, but I think with my two older brothers going to Iowa State, and my
okay.
parents were Iowa State grads both themselves, I think if I was going to go to school 10 hours away, they wanted it to be like in the mountains somewhere, not in very cold and snowy Michigan, but they eventually forgave me, and when I got my PhD at Iowa State, I could go to family Christmas again. So
Nice. Nice.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
They didn't kick you out for good.
no,
Hey,
not for very long.
shout out to Michigan. There's some pretty parts of Michigan,
Oh yeah.
way up north. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's sort of
Yeah.
like, it reminds me of Colorado, just not
Yes.
as mountainy, but it's a neat place. But yeah, you know, your walk with faith, you kind of said it without saying it too, by saying, you know what, I've taken just basically one step at a time. And I think that might be for the kid, not that you're a kid, but you're kind of fresh out of school, 2015, and then you went to grad school, and so there's this resurgence in Christianity as well. And we're totally getting off task here, but I think it's worth the nature of the listener. It's worth hearing this is, number one, I think that's just awesome. I see it in my own kids. I have kids that are about to enter college, and so they're all in with taking one step at a time. And for what that I think that means is, I'm talking to you, God, and I'm listening to you, and I'm letting you take the wheel. I can't do it. In fact, I'm terrible at it. So you please take the wheel and control this for me. And when you do that, kind of let go, it is like, okay, I'm gonna walk. Here I go. There we go. I'm doing this, and it's like, oh, you can breathe again, right? There's something about it. I don't know if Hillsdale taught you that, or if your parents taught you that, or if you're just walking by faith, and you talking to God taught you that. But that's a really good lesson in life, is to just take one little step at a time. The world's pretty chaotic. If you try to eat it all up, man, it's gonna swallow you whole, right?
Yeah, my parents definitely taught me that, and it was very much reinforced at Hillsdale. So I'm thankful for all of that. To sort of like, continue on that line of thinking, I recently heard a sermon from actually our local pastor where we go to church here, my wife and I, and he was talking about these types of things. And he said, basically quoting Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, he said, you're always going to put faith in something and you're always going to doubt something. And when you're when you're a kingdom person, right? When Jesus is your Lord and Savior, he's my Lord and Savior. Like your call is to put your faith in the Lord's goodness. Like God is good, right? And you are to doubt your own understanding. So if you get those backwards, if you doubt the Lord's goodness and you put faith in your own understanding, you're not going to have a good time, right? Like
It's
that's
not gonna be easy. Yeah.
no, it's not going to be easy. Everything's going to feel hard, and you're just not walking in everything the Lord has for you.
No, and the it's funny. We're Lutherans. Shout out to the Lutherans. Not that it matters. Um, but I was on a quick little derail story here. I was on a plane ride, or I was on a flight back from Argentina, Buenos Aires, Argentina. I can't remember. This is 3 years ago. And we got delayed, and I remember we got on the flight, one of these, we got on the flight, went down the runway, and then as we were gonna take off, the pilot's like, the wing's gonna fall off," or whatever. It was something catastrophic. We're like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, glad you didn't take off. Oh, by the way, we're gonna sit here a while and, try to figure out whatever's going on." It was like an engine trouble. It was bad. I watched the entire Oppenheimer movie, so that tells you how long we sat. It was 3.5 hour long movie. It's a good movie, by the way, but either way, finally pull us back in. Everybody's on the flights, just irritable, upset. We all want to go home, back to the States. So they all give us a hotel in Buenos Aires. We get there like 2 in the morning. I'm making this long, come back, and I'm sitting next. I noticed this guy on a flight. He looks like me. He's bald with a beard. And we have a lot of doppelgangers, bald guy with beard and glasses. So we start shooting the breeze, and he's like, super nice guy. And his buddy comes up and he's like, yeah, he's a pastor in Jacksonville, Florida. And his name's Joby Martin. And I'm like, I have no idea who that is, but cool. I'll look him up. Looked up his sermons, and I've been listening ever since. He's a giant pastor. It's the fastest growing church in America.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
called church. The church is called 1122.
Okay.
Not a Lutheran church. Back home in Des Moines, we go to a Lutheran church, study Deuteronomy 6. I think it's this week. Joby's church in Jacksonville is studying it too. Deuteronomy 6 is, it's a tough study. You probably know it's not easy. But along the lines, we get into the love chapter that everybody knows. It's not Deuteronomy 6. It's mistaken me, but love is patient, love is blind. Whatever chapter that is, you can look it up. But both of them said replace love with God in all those. God is patient. God is kind. God is giving. And also try replacing that name with your own. Joe is patient. No, 0 for 1. Joe is kind. 0 for 2. 0 for 3. See the point? And why I bring that up, I don't know, other than the fact that, good luck trying to figure it all out on your own, everybody. It's so hard. And we've got this God that loves us so much, that just wants us to thrive and excel at everything we do. And clearly he put you on this earth, Chris, to tell your story. And to me, it's fascinating. I'm glad you like to unpack that stuff, man. So I don't know if anything's on your brain that way, feel free to talk about it. I don't know why I even brought that up, other than the fact that, it's weird how if you open up your ears and listen, where it can take you, right? One step at a time.
Yeah. And I think that where my mind goes with all that, Joe, is thinking like, you mentioned Joe is patient and Joe is kind.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to be patient, kind, et cetera, in the workplace, right? Like,
yeah.
I'll talk about my time on campus at Iowa State. That was during COVID. Everyone was irritable. A lot of classes that should have been enjoyable were just miserable because you were in masks and 6 feet apart and all the rest.
Yep.
I was in an academic department that I've never ever met an academic with a bad attitude, right? I don't know if you have, but there were a couple of those walking around at the time, and so there were just there were a lot of opportunities to walk in the love of Christ in that season, and I probably should have done better, but I think that that's our call, right? Like, we are called to be patient, we are called to be kind. When other people aren't patient or other people aren't kind, we're called to turn the other cheek. Like, we're not allowed to play by the same rules that the world is. Our rules are different, and they're impossible to do on our own, but that's what we're called to.
Yeah. I love it, man. I think to circle this all the way back around is sometimes the message of the church today, and I'm not trying to start a holy war, but sometimes the message of the church today is you just, oh, well, I know you're not patient. I know you're not kind. But just keep trying. Just get there. Just try harder, try harder. I don't know if I agree with that message, because how's that working out for? It's not really working out. And it's sort of like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes we've got to be willing to kind of change. And, the word in Christianity is repent, change, like really change. Don't just say you're going to, like, really change. And it's hard to relate this back to our previous conversation, but I think that's sort of the world we're in right now, where we're all sort of stuck in this cycle of over and over and over and over again. And what worked for my dad, and, it worked for his dad, and, it worked 5 years ago. It's going to work again. And I think it's time for us to really take a hard look in the mirror and really stop and think about all the things that we're doing. Definitely put your faith and forward in God, because that'll lead you in the right direction. Let's start with that. But after that, let's start with, let's do some real hard changing and real hard looking, and let's do some repenting at the way we go about our day-to-day things, because I think we have no choice. We're going to have to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's where my brain goes with all this anyway. So that's to circle it all back, to where we're at. But anyway, man, I think we could go on forever and ever on this. I told you before, I want you to be a regular guest. Just the way you talk about topics that are relevant. There's so many changing things going on right now in the USDA. So before we leave, give us some of the, what's the next hot topics here that the Farm Bureau's talking about and looking at that everybody can be kind of aware of, and what should they be kind of forward thinking on?
Farm Bureau right now is very focused on farmer profitability. To kind of also tie up some things from that earlier part of the discussion. When costs are high and revenues are low, you have a farmer profitability issue, and that's not sustainable. We had a couple good years there, so folks can live with negative margins for a little bit, but you can't do that forever. So farmer profitability is certainly on everyone's mind right now. So that's number one. Number two is what's going to happen with all this tariff trade deal, all this stuff. Like what's the end game and how are we going to get there? And sort of a sub point to that is what happens if the Trump tariffs are ruled, especially the reciprocal tariffs, the so-called IEBA reciprocal tariffs. What happens if the Supreme Court throws those out? What's next? We don't know. I don't know if there's a poly market for it or not, but I have to think it's probably 80-20 that the tariffs don't exist in the same form as they do right now after whatever the Supreme Court decision is, just based on what the oral arguments were like. And so that opens up this massive can of worms of unknowns, right? We've never been here before. So certainly tracking all of that, like what happens to the trade deals that were inked if those tariffs that were being used as leverage get thrown out. That's something else that we're tracking very closely. And then also I'm personally watching this cattle market pretty closely. These recent developments have a lot of folks concerned. Iowa is number 4 for cattle on feed. So we have more cattle feedlots than, all but 3 other states. So it's very material to Iowa Farm Bureau members, what's going on in that market. And for the past couple years, cattle has been the brightest spot, arguably the only consistent bright spot in the economy here, in the ag economy here in Iowa for probably 2 to 3 years. So I would get pretty concerned if that starts to go the other direction and positive gains turn into, big losses.
Yeah. So farmer profitability, the tariffs, and can the damage be, is it too much? Can it be undone? And what's that look like for those following the Supreme Court decision? It's a highly likelihood chance they are going to vote those down. So, pay attention to that out there, farmers and all those in agribusiness. And then your final point, cattle market. It's always been kind of a bright spot here, and now it's maybe not a bright spot. And so now it's back. It's in the glut where everything else is at these days. So I think the level of optimism, I want to make sure we end with some optimism here to make sure that who's ever listening to this, even if it's if maybe it's this farmer over here, my neighbor that's got his light on at 5 a.m. in the morning. I don't even know his name, to be honest, so I should go over and tell him. But
yeah, I should go knock on his door and ask.
Hey, man, we just talked about you for an hour. Yeah. But anyway, what's your message? What's your optimistic message? Because why not be optimistic, right? There's no other point but to be optimistic, in my opinion. Those that are pessimistic, stop. Be optimistic. It's a good way to live. So, Chris, the floor is yours. Be optimistic here these last few seconds.
Yeah, you mentioned how folks are, especially in the youth, returning to Christ, right?
Yep.
I also think that there is going to be, and this is a whole nother podcast episode, right?
Okay.
But I think that as AI starts to generate more and more things that just feel fake, I'm not an AI doomer by any means, right? But there's episodes and episodes worth of that stuff. I think there will be a return to interest in rural America. I think that folks are going to crave something that's real. I think they're going to crave getting their hands dirty, whether that's a blue collar job or whether that's raising cows. I think that there is going to be this return to the authentic. And I think that rural America is more authentic than any other part of the country. So that's my optimism.
That's awesome, by the way. Super intelligent and so true. I think that's why I love doing podcasts. For those that don't have a podcast or have never done one, it's like one of the few times during my day or week that I can have just a conversation with somebody without having to rely. I mean, I use AI all the time. All of us do. But we've been talking for what, about an hour? I haven't once relied on it. Just a conversation. And it's real, and it's sort of raw, and it's like how we used to talk back in the day. And it's really hard to have conversations with anybody more. You got to almost schedule them like this. That's why I think there's just going to be this resurgence in podcasts are popular already, but even a small podcast like mine, I'm by no means Joe Rogan, but to have a conversation with somebody, to your point, this is kind of like getting your hands dirty,
Yeah.
talking it out. It's therapeutic. It's refreshing.
It's
You can
fun.
talk about, it's fun. You can talk about God. You can talk about business. You can talk about tariffs. You can talk about politics. I've talked about all these things. So yeah, man, that's super intelligent. You say that. I think you're probably onto something too with just, let's, get your hands dirty again. Don't, we got a big old God out there. He's not giving up on us. So don't give up. We're going to figure this out and take one step at a time. Right, Chris?
Absolutely. One step
Yeah.
at a time.
One step at a time. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you, how to get in touch with the Iowa Farm Bureau, and hopefully we'll record another one of these, and we'll kind of make this regular. So we'll give people updates on what it's like to be, an Iowa farmer on the economic side of things. But go ahead.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I try to post there relatively frequently. Christopher Pudenz. I'm sure my name will be listed in the
Yep, we'll be in the show notes. Yep, we'll link your
in the show
LinkedIn.
notes. My LinkedIn is there. IowaFarmBureau.com is a great resource for folks in the state of Iowa and even regionally. We have economic content there. We have a lot of educational resources there for folks who want to learn more about production agriculture here in the state. A lot of young farmer resources that I think are really cool there on the website. So that's another place that people should check out.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Definitely look Chris up on LinkedIn. I think that's we got hooked up via Katie over at the Soybean Association. So yeah, thanks Katie for hooking us up. We appreciate that. And, all right, well, that's it, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Chris, appreciate you. And we'll talk again soon, my friend. Reach driven leaders with the Germinate podcast. Sponsor our show to align your brand with actionable insights and purposeful growth. Contact us today at embosales.com/podcast. That's www.embosales.com/podcast to partner and inspire our growing audience of professionals. Hey folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.